everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Wealthy Warrior Leaders podcast. So, I'm super excited to have on the fabulous Ralu Atomei here with me, and she is going to talk with me about how we go from people pleasing to self leadership. And this is specifically healing for women leaders. Obviously, all genders are invited to listen and to give their thoughts, but we wanted to have this conversation just as us, as women leaders, as well as mums, and also leading in this space as well. And how we're hoping that this conversation can help with you as well. So Ralu is I'll ask her to introduce herself in a second, but she is a top leader in this space. Okay. She is a nervous system capacity coach for high functioning women. Okay. She is trauma informed. She's an incredible healer. She has her own programs as well. And at the end, we will talk about how, if you want to go ahead with working with her, we'll have some of her links as well, and the next step. So Ralu, if you just take it away by just kindly introducing yourself, anything further, and also what kind of led you into this space, into this work as well. Thank you, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for the invite. I'm very happy to be here. As you mentioned, I'm a nervous system capacity and trauma-informed coach. I founded my brand called Rebel Healing because I wholeheartedly believe that healing is actually, in today's society, is the most rebellious thing you can actually do. I work with high-functioning women. I work with women who either have high roles in leadership in corporate, or they have their own business, sometimes both, why not? And somehow they still feel stuck because of patterns that they maybe don't even identify as being trauma responses. So as you mentioned, we're talking about things like people pleasing. We're talking about things like potentially imposter syndrome. The more you do, people think that the more success you achieve, actually imposter syndrome goes away, or those trauma responses go away. And that's not true, unfortunately. You've probably seen it yourself as well.
Yes. Yes, doesn't cure it, unfortunately.
Exactly. And I think there's been a lot of interviews with very successful people who have said the same thing. Actually, imposter syndrome never goes away. And the perspective that I offer through my practice is actually we don't want those parts to go away. I work with internal family systems, and internal family systems works on the idea that there are no bad parts of us. They are all loving and protective parts that are our nervous system actually created to protect us, to keep us safe, to keep us surviving. However, right now, our nervous system doesn't realize that they're not effective anymore. They don't serve the initial purpose anymore. So this is what we do in the work that I do with my clients. We actually listen to those parts, we understand where they're coming from, and we befriend them rather than try to remove them.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I love that you say that because, when we talk about, say, compassionate leadership, right, it starts from within, right? Self-leadership
Absolutely.
doesn't have to mean harsh. I mean, yes, we need, I like to call it discipline. So we've got to put the reps in, we've got to do the work, but we can do it from a place of, we can do it from a place of compassion and love. And actually, don't you find often with yourself and with the work that you do with your clients that the resistance drops then? Because it's like, it's calm. It's not like, oh, I've got to get rid of this. Fear is bad. It calms it down. It makes it easier, right? To do
Absolutely.
the healing work. And sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I think my internet has been wobbly, so I'm hoping that we're still alive. I wanted to mention that, as you were mentioning with self-leadership, means leadership coming from the self, and the self, as seen through internal family systems and trauma-informed practices, is actually calm, connected, clear, compassionate. It's creative, something that we kind of miss most of the times when we talk about leadership. No one is thinking about creativity in leadership, and it's very important to actually lead with this, with being calm and connected and compassionate. And this is actually the reason why I started this work. I am a mom myself, and
Yes.
looking at not only individual healing, but looking at collective healing, looking at systemic healing, we can actually build a more compassionate world. And we all know that we need one right now, especially.
Glad you said that. It's so true because the funny thing is that people think, or I certainly used to think, that compassion, I mean, I was very compassionate, very sensitive. That's why I'm a healer, why I'm also a healer, right? But initially, it was where I was made to feel, or I felt that, oh, it's like a weakness, being sensitive and
Mhm.
vulnerable. And it's definitely, it's not easy, right? Um, and it's like being compassionate and as if it's some sort of weakness, but actually as I got into my leadership roles as mental health director, GP partner, whatever it is, all the things that didn't heal the imposter syndrome, right? So as I got into it, it was like, wow, this is really about relationship building and understanding who you're serving and serving from within, and that comes from a place of compassion. You can have boundaries, but and yes,
Mhm.
there are times we can be assertive as well, but you can still be compassionate. So it's not black and white. It's very like you have to navigate through, around, and that takes creativity, right? It takes being
Mhm.
creative, compassionate, listening, and being very flexible. And so that is very much, I mean, any gender can do it, but I do think that it is from whether that feminine energy, whether you want to say it's woman or not, or the divine feminine energy, actually it's available to all, right? Compassion is
Mhm.
not just a female thing, but I think that it is a great time to really lean into, well, okay, so in this situation, like, how do I do that? And like you said, first we need to do it for ourselves, right? And it's not easy, it's not, unfortunately, just going to the nail salon, right, and getting a blow dry. I wish it was that easy. But it is more,
Yeah.
it's deeper. It is looking at, I don't know if you want to call it the shadows. It's not necessarily bad, it's just looking at that contrast within. And then, do you find that as well? And then seeing how do we work through it, not necessarily ignoring it.
Absolutely. I think that you kind of nailed it there when you were talking about boundaries. We've learned to associate leadership with things like being cold, being very well organized, very well disciplined. And that's why I was saying as well, we don't really think about creativity in that space. We look at it as more artistic and not related to leadership.
Mm.
Boundaries are very important. And I'm going to connect that also with what we're calling gentle parenting, because obviously motherhood is very important in this space as well. I think we've kind of, I know gentle parenting is one of the controversies in the online space. I think most of the time it has been confused with permissive parenting. And
Mm.
actually, gentle parenting set so much focus on boundaries, on not raising the next generation of people pleasers. Because
Yeah.
us, especially as women, we have been unfortunately raised to be people pleasers. It's a nervous system trauma response. However, we've been conditioned by society for so long, for generations, to stay small, to stay silent, to stay humble, because no one needs to feel like we're bragging with our achievements, and no
Mm.
one needs to um, we are the ones who actually have to hold it all together and make everyone comfortable and make everyone happy. And that
Mm.
is not the purpose. And I feel like when you kind of combine motherhood and leadership, or motherhood and being an entrepreneur, being a woman in business, that's when all of these patterns actually start to surface, start to bubble up, and they show up even more because of all this conditioning, because of all the words we've actually associated with things like motherhood and with being a woman in general.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's interesting you saying that because it's in initially when you look back generations in most cultures, it came from a place of safety, right? Like stay
Yeah.
small, stay safe, stay hidden, smile, be the good girl, whatever that
Mhm.
means. Because it actually physically kept you safe, right? It physically kept you
Yeah.
safe, and then it came the time of kind of like let's keep the peace, right? Like no internal peace for that woman, but at least everyone else. Okay, so you keep the
Yeah.
peace, okay, and we, joking aside, it was a safety mechanism of like, okay, we need to hold the family together, and
Mhm.
physically what that looked like. So I think there are different seasons, and it's beautiful to see female leadership, women leadership in so many different, I like to say, flavors, right? Like in different cultures and
Mhm.
different stages and different parts of society, because it's not a one size fits all, right? And especially
Mhm.
when you are a parent, when you're a mom, there are other people, like I like to say, like it's easy if you're if you're on like a speedboat and it's like, okay, well, off you go, here's a strategy, see you later, and they're gone, they're already there, right? But if you're on like a slow like cruise liner, and then you add in some 11 plus and 7 plus and some diarrhea, and and let's try and get 10 vegetables in a day in football practice. But joking aside, these are blessings that I asked for, not the diarrhea, but like these are blessings that I asked for, right? So then we need to navigate each phase, right? And
Yeah.
what I like to do is really look at what are the values. So we actually did a meditation with this with my boys the other day. um and even though it makes bedtime take longer, but I'm like, okay, well, if I'm self-leading and I'm co-leading with my husband at home, then we should be doing this more, right? So
Yeah.
we were doing this meditation. It was beautiful. It was all about the internal compass of values, right? And I thought that was incredible, about how you're picking which values are important, and then you lead yourself from those values, right? So like when my son's
Mhm.
doing his science test today, we were like, well, yeah, obviously you want to aim for the top marks, and all of that, but ultimately there was an element of detachment, right? Because when he was journaling, he was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, because everyone will like me." I'm like, "No, no, no, stop there. First of all, we don't care if anyone likes us. Okay, please just drop that. We're not doing that this generation." And it's interesting because maybe along the way they had picked up like, "Oh, because then everyone will like you," and it's like, yeah, but there are lots of not
Mhm.
great people in the world, and everyone likes them. So you got to focus on your own internal values and your
Yeah.
intuition, how it feels in your body as well. Um, so yeah, I think with people pleasing, I'd love for you to speak, more on that, because I know that's what one of the biggest things that you're very passionate about in
Mhm.
terms of healing as well. So just how do you find it does show up, let's say when women leaders are coming to you who are probably mothers as well, like do they
Mhm.
see it as people pleasing, or does it show up in other ways? And maybe is it often being praised instead of being healed? Or I'd love to know what your thoughts are.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And it does come back to safety, as you mentioned, because essentially what we need to understand is the fact that the nervous system is not wired for happiness, is not wired for joy, is not wired for success. It's only wired for survival. And in order to keep you alive, it needs to keep you safe. So
Yeah.
the same mechanisms that worked when maybe you were a child and it developed these parts to keep you safe at that point, the same mechanisms are brought into your adulthood unless you
Mm.
become aware of them and start working with them and start your own healing. And
Mm.
obviously, we're trying our best right now with the next generation, but it makes it a bit more difficult with our generation somehow. And there's a lot of intergenerational trauma as well there, because we need to touch on the fact that trauma can actually go back 7 generations.
Yes,
And
yeah.
we all know throughout history how women were brought up and how they were thought to, again, hold it all together for the entire family and make everyone happy. And the thing is, right now, with most of the studies and with the work that Dr. Gabor Mate has been doing as well, things, patterns like people pleasing and self silencing and not being able to express your anger and your emotions in a healthy way have actually been linked to autoimmune diseases,
Yeah.
particularly in women, because according to statistics, out of all the people who suffer from autoimmune diseases, 80% are women. And
Yes.
obviously, self-silencing is a big one for women. So people pleasing shows up in various ways. It shows up in your family environment where you don't actually prioritize yourself, where you think self care is just having a bubble bath once every 2 weeks, or
Mhm.
hoping that in 2, 3 months you're going to be able to take a day at the spa. And I was actually I was at an event on Friday and talking about self care, from bubble baths to building nervous system capacity. And we were talking exactly about this. Self care is not the fact that you're taking a bath or
Yes.
you're allowed to take a shower. Most of the times, that's just the reality for women, for moms. They are allowed to take a shower. It's That's a maintenance. That should be maintenance. Nervous system capacity is the one that matters. And that means setting boundaries, even at the risk of disappointing others. That means stepping away from toxic environments that drain you and they leave you exhausted and depleted. It means actually eating nourishing food and healthy food rather than just eating fast food really quickly. Staying hydrated, actually being connected with your body and understanding those cues from your body and listening to them, because sometimes it's, oh, I need to finish this really quickly and then I'm going to go to the toilet, or then I'm going to go to eat, and then we end up a few hours later and we completely forgot we needed to eat or we needed to drink some water or something like this. So there's a lot of ways that people pleasing can show up in your personal life, but there's a lot of ways that it can show up in leadership as a woman in business. It means not actually expressing your opinions in a meeting where it's very important for people to see what you have to say. It means in business, for example, it can be related to underpricing yourself or
Mm.
over explaining your offers, or trying to throw in one more bonus or one more thing just to explain that you bring value to the table. So I'm
Yes.
seeing this over and over again with my clients, and I do
Mhm.
work a lot with women in business. And there's so many ways in which people pleasing actually shows up to
Yes.
make everyone happy, everyone but yourself. And
With yourself,
essentially,
yes.
um, exactly, essentially, people pleasing comes with two main elements that I always talk about. First of all, it comes with an expectation that everyone should treat you the same way you treat them. And that most of the times doesn't actually happen because that expectation is not actually verbalized.
Yes,
And
yes.
second of all, it comes with resentment. When we
Mm.
expect others to do the same thing, like, I'm going to be available to you 24/7, you can call me at 2 a.m. and I'm going to come and save the day, the night, whatever. Um, when you're doing the same thing, like when you need that support and that support is not coming because people have their boundaries, then it comes with resentment. And then it
Mm.
comes with that spiral of blame and shame of, oh, I did it again. What's wrong with me? Why am I
Mm.
always doing this? Why am I'm incapable of saying no when I want to say no, and I always say yes to everyone, and I'm giving everyone all my time, all my energy, and I literally feel exhausted.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's interesting that you when you mentioned about how, it's all people pleasing, it does go into the body, that chronic
Mm-hmm.
stress, the chronic self-silencing. I'm really big on chakra healing as well, or energy healing. I mean, there's so many different words, however
Mm-hmm.
you want to look at it. But there is actually a throat chakra, right? So, and for me, even with this
Exactly.
podcast. And even with us talking about this is us, you and me, we are activating our throat chakras, and it's on a frequency of love for the
Mm-hmm.
collective and empowerment. And yeah, there are people who are like not going to like it, right? Because it is there is resistance there, but it is activating that. And actually
Mm-hmm.
I find, and then there is also the root chakra, which is the foundation of self, right? Your foundation, your values, stability, survival. So when I see patients with my GP hat on, when I see patients, I have to say majority of the symptoms are from um, basically chronic stress. Yes, we use this word chronic
Yeah.
stress as if it's like normal now. Chronic stress, but from what? It is basically not being your authentic self. And that is, let's be
Mm-hmm.
honest, it's not easy to do that, right? It's not easy to
Yes.
do that when we say these things, but it's like, okay. And then obviously I'll have clients who are like, yeah, but how do I do that with my husband? How do I do that at work? How do I do that with my children? How do I do all of this on like a Monday, and then go
Mm-hmm.
and make chicken curry, so it is the reality. And it's sometimes easier to be like, I don't want to silence myself, but like, I'm just you can feel, right, isn't it, like their nervous system is just
The
fried,
new one.
that it's easier to be
That's
like, okay, I'm
exactly.
just gonna, like, oh, it's
Yeah.
just too much. And it's like, you can take it in steps. You don't have to do like the
Mm-hmm.
whole revolution in like, on
Yes.
on Saturday morning breakfast. You can like take a step and be like, okay, you know what, and then say to yourself, like, I'm proud that you didn't say yes straight away. And then it will
Mm-hmm.
become, I'm glad that you took that time to say, I need to just check a few things. I'll come back to you. So you
Yes.
build
Yeah.
yourself space. And you might be like, oh, meditate. I need to call Radu, I need to call Dr. Vinny. I don't know what I'm doing, and then, or meditate on it. And then it's you know what, I'm not sure. I just don't have capacity for that right now. Or, so you're building step by step. It's like
it's a
strength
it's a
training.
bridge. Yeah, it's
There's
a
a bridge.
bridge you need to build essentially, because we all
Yes.
want to go from extreme people pleasing to no is a full sentence, but the
Yes.
reality is never that. You need to take it
Yes.
step by step and
Yes.
train your nervous system, work with your nervous system, because it often mistakes chaos for safety due to your your trauma pattern. So
Yes.
it's exactly as you said, taking it step by step. Maybe today I'm going to say, I can't help you today, but I'll help you tomorrow. Maybe
Yes.
the day after you're going to say, how can I bring this on my own terms? I cannot do this for
Mm,
you. I can do XYZ. So this is part of the work that I do with my clients as well. And actually, I was a people pleaser. I call myself a recovered people pleaser right
yes, yes,
now.
me too.
Also, yeah, also because of chronic stress, I actually struggled with infertility for 2 years before I had my
Mm,
daughter. There was
mm,
nothing wrong with my labs. There was nothing wrong with my body as per
mm,
medical terms.
mm,
So
mm,
it was strictly chronic stress and my
mm,
body trying to keep me
mm.
in survival mode. So
Yes.
there's a lot of physical, you probably seen it obviously more with your GP practice,
Yes.
issues with stomach, the autoimmune diseases that I was mentioning, pain, all of these come in the moment because your body craves that rest, craves that recharging on one hand, but also that's where that energy is stuck from self-silencing, from unreleased anger, because anger is a big one, and
Mm,
anger actually takes you to ulcer. Anger
yes.
has been over time linked to ulcer.
Yes.
And that's what I want more women to actually understand. You go to the doctor when you have issues with your body, but potentially at that point is too late, because it's always
Mm,
better to prevent rather than treat, obviously.
yes.
So how about realizing that your mental health is more important to
Yes.
work with before it actually goes into your physical health?
Yes. Absolutely. And it's interesting because I would say 90% of my patients, regardless of the symptom they come for, obviously if it's appropriate, I also refer for therapy.
Mhm.
Obviously, in my practice, I'm not able to talk about the other healing work I do, just the nature
Of
of the
course.
system, which is fine. But the closest thing would be to refer for therapy. And then, but most of the time it's because that is actually the source of what's going on here. And it takes two things. It takes calming the nervous system first,
Mhm.
because you can't get clarity of thought until you actually, first of all, just are not having panic attacks, are not holding this anxiety in your chest, right?
Yeah.
And you're not, first we need to calm it down in the body. Like you said, it's that survival mode. And we're kind of reminding ourselves, like, it's okay, you're safe. And then moving to, okay, now I can start to think about, I wonder what was so triggering about that, but not as a self-blame, like, why was I so triggering? What's wrong with me? No, everything's fine. Now we can, and you might, yes, need the help, right, to take a mentor such as us to look at what is this about? And then you can start the healing work, which is actually, okay, it's a
Mhm.
bit up, down, but it's actually quite cathartic because you then know
Yeah.
that, okay, it's a progress, right? It's a work in progress. And
Mhm.
I think the hardest thing is when they're right at the beginning of that road, and it all feels like no one understands me. I don't know what's happening. And often I will utilize sometimes a sick note, whatever the workplace thinks, because that is the only way for
Mhm.
some people. They need to be like extracted out of that situation,
Yeah.
and you want to like shake them with love, but they can't see it until they are out of work. Don't look at Slack. Don't look at Teams. We don't look at anything. And it's normally in the second week. The first week is just guilt, like, oh, I should be taking the work off. I don't know what
Yeah.
else talking about. She's understand. Then the second week, like, oh, okay, yeah, now I can see I just didn't even know what I was
Too
doing.
embedded.
Too intense, yeah. And then they're like, okay, oh
Yeah.
yeah, actually, then we need more time off, or they're getting therapy, or they're having coaching, whatever
Yeah.
it is. Then they can see, because it has to come from within. Again,
Mhm.
self-leadership, right? Like, we can say all of this, but
Yeah.
it has to come from within. No one else can do it, right? And then you can make all these beautiful changes as well. So I'd
I
love to
think
ask
the
you,
most
yes,
sorry,
please.
I
No, no,
just wanted
please.
to add here, the most
Yes.
important shift that I've seen with my clients is actually from asking yourself what is wrong with me to asking yourself what happened to me that made me react this way. So one of my clients actually said, you made me the Sherlock Holmes in my own life, because I'm now leading with curiosity. So it's always
That's
leading with
good.
that curiosity. What happened in
Yeah.
my background that still impacts me today? what
Yeah.
what's is my body trying to tell me? What is this pattern trying to tell me, and how can I actually change this to be
Mm.
able to lead in a different way, to lead from that self leadership?
Yes, yes, exactly. Well, I was just going to ask about the same thing, because it's often in like, what is the step, right? Because often there are women in leadership, as we are too, and they're used to having the more of the logical mind of like, this is a step, this is a strategy, and you just do it.
Mhm.
But this is the emotional mind. It is the creative mind. It is a not one size fits all, which they kind of, don't want. Like, just what is a protocol? Let me implement it now. It's like, no, you actually need to stop. It doesn't actually take that long. But yeah, we want to stop and lean into the uncomfortable feeling and don't avoid it. Just sit with it. And actually
Mhm.
it dissipates. It dissipates,
Yeah.
right? I always say to my clients, my patients, about how it's anxiety, or when the nervous system is in disarray. It's a bit like my kids, right, when they're like, oh, mom, can I have this, can I have this? And it might be the smallest thing where we're like, I just wanted to know if tomorrow's Tuesday. It's just like, okay. And it would be like a real, as if it's urgent. But the more not that I ignore my kids, but in that moment when you're like, I don't know, you're chopping
Yeah.
vegetables, you're like, you get really like, oh. And then actually, when you just turn to it, like with anxiety, almost like recognition, it just
Mhm.
dissipates. It's kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
I just want to let you know I was here. It's like, okay, thank you, anxiety. I recognize you here. And it
Exactly.
starts to calm down. But the more you're like, I don't want to hear. No, I'm not anxious. Everything's fine. Oh, it's amazing. Toxic positivity makes it worse. And it's much harder. Like, do you find that as well? I find it
Yeah.
takes longer to come back than just being like, it's okay. Anxiety is normal. Just
Yeah.
telling you, we need to make some changes around here, okay? It's okay.
Well,
It's when you
yeah.
resist. Do you find that as well with your work?
Well, actually, studies have shown that emotions take 90 seconds to go through your body. If you let them flow for 90 seconds, then they can go away. However, everything else is your parts showing up, as you mentioned. Is that anxiety part that's telling you something doesn't feel right? Can you check your surroundings and see if you're in danger? Real dangers, because sometimes our nervous system works on perceived danger, and this is why they show up when they're not supposed to. And then you have the overthinking part taking over and starting to plan all these scenarios. What did I say? What happened? How did they interpret it? What if I'm going to lose my job? What if that client is never going to work with me anymore? And so on and so forth. So it's all those parts that are taking over and prolonging that impact of the actual emotion. The emotion would have been gone in 90 seconds, but
Yes.
our background and our patterns are then showing up. So I created my own framework called the CEO within. And the way I see it is the self is the CEO at the boardroom table. When the CEO had to step back because of that trauma, then the inner leadership team had to take over. So you're looking at the people pleasing part as the head of PR. You're looking at the imposter syndrome as the head of internal audit control. So they come back to the boardroom table trying to keep the company alive, trying to not allow it to being crumbs or crumble down. And they are doing that because they believe in you, because they want to protect you, because they are loving parts, not because they don't want to see you succeed or they don't want to see you happy. So those parts are taking over. It's if when you have that image in your mind and you see those parts at the boardroom table, how they work together and how they interact with each other and how they're trying to protect the CEO within, it makes it a lot easier, I think,
Yeah.
to understand the whole internal family systems model.
Yes, I love that. I love that how it's not the emotion, because all emotions are normal, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
the meaning
Yeah,
behind it, the meaning we're attaching to it, which we can change,
yeah.
right? We can reframe at any time. And also, I think, as adults, we forget that we are also changing. So decisions we made before this job 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even last year, when you're constantly doing, especially this self development work, spiritual development, leadership development, whatever you would like to call it, we are changing, right? Like core
Yeah.
values probably stay the same, but sometimes they change too. But we kind of almost haven't realized in like the busyness of the day to day that we're like, okay, this is not aligning anymore because this is
Mm-hmm.
just isn't my value anymore. It doesn't sit right, it doesn't feel right. And then our body is telling me, which is then calling me to book an appointment with the doctor or consult with you or with me or whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's showing, it's
Yeah.
giving you an indication through anxiety. It's, I often say that it is anxiety, it's a form of disease, but it's
Yeah.
dis-ease, right? Like the mind body is not
Exactly.
at ease. It's a good thing. It's trying to show
Mm-hmm.
you something. So we want to stop ignoring that as well. So I would
Yeah.
love to share more. I think we're going to have to do like a part two.
A
I would love
second
to
part.
share more, which is beautiful, right? Because it shows how we need more of these conversations in the world. We
Yeah.
need more people out there doing this healing, ethical wealth creation, which includes ethical for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is doing it in a healthy
Yeah.
way, and leadership of yourself, your family, and your service. And doing this, first and foremost, starting with yourself. Okay, it is not selfish; it is selfful. So, if
Mm-hmm.
this resonates with you, and people want to reach out to you, Ralu, how do they go about that? Should they send you a message on
Um,
LinkedIn or?
Mostly you can find, yes, you can find me on LinkedIn as Ralu
Mhm.
Atomei. You can find me on Facebook. Facebook is my main platform. Again, as
Okay.
Ralu Atomei, my website is rebelhealing.net. So I have all my
Yeah.
information in there, and you can contact me through my website as well. I have my signature group offer called Shift Happens, the Good Girl
Mhm.
Detox. I'm actually starting a new cohort next week,
Lovely.
working with women for 4 months to map their nervous system, identify those patterns and parts, work with them, work through money trauma, because that's a major one as well for women in
Absolutely.
leadership and
Yes.
business, and then work on identity integration for the final month. I also work one-to-one, either in small containers like one-to-one power hours, or in longer containers like my VIP healing program, which include a full day of in-person coaching wrapped up in 3 months of ongoing and follow-up support. So this is the way I work at the moment. I am going to launch a new offer in April, so I'm very
Oh,
excited about that
fabulous.
one, particularly focused on women in leadership and successful businesses, because it doesn't say that if the business is successful, the business owner is not actually struggling or is not
Mm,
actually kept plateauing by some of their patterns. So I do want to focus on that segment as well.
beautiful, beautiful work, incredible creation. So I will also put all the links below after this episode and when we share it, so that you can reach out to Ralu as well or for any of her programs. And if my message resonates with you, come and join in Legacy Leader Circle. It's my membership. It's only $47 per month, and that is the most affordable rate that compared to one-to-one coaching. So I also have masterminds, I have group coaching, I have flagship offers as well. But this is sort of like the entry point, okay? So this is the hallway, the atrium.
Mhm.
So come on in, and this is all about leaders. It's for all genders, but very much about, this work isn't about, we're not fixing anyone here, right? Like no one's broken, but
Yeah.
we're really just remembering who we are, going back, uncovering all those paradigms, and then leading from within ourselves, our families, our global service, and how to launch one. But also, with our best health, ethical wealth creation, and leadership, right? Like you can have it all. I strongly believe you can, but we just need to sometimes go back a couple of steps and just realign. So that's in my Warrior Heart method, which is all about healing, empowerment, awakening, rising, regulating, and transformation as a wealthy warrior legacy leader. So sending you so much love and light. The link is down below if you want to
Thank you.
join. And if you want to join Ralu, I'll put all those links there as well. And if you've watched this and this resonates, if you have any questions as well, please comment down below, and Ralu and I will message you or we'll answer them for you. And we're so excited to have you here. So we're going to end the podcast now. Thank you so much for